Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I want to talk about something very simple yet incredibly important, and that is how to have better conversations on your first date. Now, I'm not talking clever lines, I'm not talking scripts, I'm not talking tricks or gimmicks. I just want to talk a little bit about two solid rules that make almost every first date conversation flow better. Because on a date, the only thing you have going for you is, well, conversation, pretty much. So you need to make sure that you're pretty good at it. Now, most bad dates aren't bad because of your looks or the location you picked. It could have something to do with it, but usually that isn't the case. They're bad because the conversation is bad. The conversation feels stiff or forced, and it might feel like an interview. And usually that happens because people are either talking way too much or they are not actually engaging in the conversation. So let's keep it simple here. The first rule is this: you have to be present, not impressive. A lot of guys go into first dates trying to perform, you know. We're not working in the circus, okay? So we don't do performances, we don't do acts. We just want to be present. And if we're present, that is pretty much very impressive. What guys usually want to do is they want to sound very interesting, come across as intelligent or funny, and impressive in general. And when you're doing that, you're busy in your head. You're trying to manage how you come across. You stop actually listening. You're waiting for your turn to speak instead of responding to what she said. Now, good conversation doesn't come from having the best stories, it comes from attention. Now, I've been on quite a few dates, and usually the conversation isn't very impressive or very interesting in terms of great stories. Usually we're talking about, hobbies, work, things you'd like to do in the future. Really boring stuff, actually. Not very great in terms of stories. But the conversation is great, actually. Why? Because her and I are very attentive to what is being said. Therefore, the conversation is pretty good, even though the topics might be pretty boring. So, when you're genuinely present, she'll feel it. She'll feel heard, seen, and relaxed. And relaxation is what allows connection to happen because guards go down, walls go down, she'll open up to you. And when she opens up to you, that's when you're, in the position to make a connection. So instead of thinking, what should I say next? Ask yourself this: what did she just say? And what can I respond to naturally? That shift alone makes the conversation feel more human and way less forced. So you have to pay attention to what she's saying and respond to that. So you don't also need to dominate the conversation. That's not something you need to do. And you don't need to be quiet either. You just need to react honestly. If something she says is interesting, say that. Hey, that's interesting. Tell me more. If something surprises you, react to it. You probably want to react surprised. If something is funny, it's okay to laugh. That is what presence means. The second rule is this: you have to add energy to the conversation. Don't drain the conversation. A first date is not a place for heavy topics, or trauma dumping, or long complaints about your life or your job or, past relationships. Even if those things are real, they weigh the conversation down way too early and way too much. Now, I'm not saying that you can't talk about, important and heavy stuff. I'm saying you have to balance it a little bit. I mean, the heavy topics are interesting because that also allows you to connect on a much deeper level. But you don't want to complain about your job in the first 5 minutes of the date. Maybe save it for later. So it doesn't mean that you have to be fake. It doesn't mean that you have to be positive all the time. It just means you have to be aware of the emotional weight you're bringing into the moment. A good first date conversation has some movement to it. It has light teasing, some fluffiness to it, curiosity, playfulness, and maybe some stories that actually go somewhere. It leaves both people feeling slightly more energized than when they arrived. If you notice the conversation is sinking or getting way too serious or too analytical or too heavy, you can just gently steer it back by changing the tone instead of the topic. You know, smile, be playful with a comment, add a curious question to it. You don't need to force depth on a first date. Depth comes later when trust exists. And when you walk away from a date, you want to feel more energized. You want to say, oh, that was fun. That was some good banter. That was very light and fluffy. I feel more connected. You don't want to walk away from a date saying, oh my God, that was heavy stuff. That's not a good thing. And here's the key thing, these two rules work together. Presence creates comfort. Light energy and fluffiness creates attraction. So when you combine those, conversations flow without effort. A lot of guys think that chemistry is something mystical. It isn't, it really isn't. It's usually just two people who are comfortable, relaxed, and paying attention, and not draining the room with stress or performance. And I can guarantee you that in 99% of the dates you'll have, you can create chemistry because all you need to do is talk with her, speak with her. But you have to do it in the right way. If you do it properly, you can create a lot of chemistry with pretty much any woman. So, if you remember nothing else, remember this. Listen to her to connect, not to impress her. And leave the conversation lighter than you found it. If you do that, then most first dates immediately will feel better for the both of you. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.